Welcome to the many interpretations of Protoceratops. Protoceratops was a protoceratopsid ceratopsian that lived in the late Cretaceous of what is now Mongolia. I am very excited to talk about these guys. Of course, by default, I love ceratopsians. Ceratopsians are really fascinating dinosaurs, but then when you get into the smaller ceratopsians, then it gets really fascinating. Like Protoceratops in general is just a very fascinating dinosaur. So I'm very excited to get into this. And so, without further ado, let's get right into it. So we will start off with dinosaur eggs and babies. So first of all, in the first footage that I can see, we see it going up against a velociraptor, which is canon. Velociraptor and Protoceratops did in fact tussle from time to time. They got into the odd fight. They would often be at each other's throats. It's canon. It's locked in time, right? It's locked in time. They would fight each other, and of course we know this mostly because there is a fossil that was found known as the fighting dinosaurs that showcases a Protoceratops and Velociraptor locked in time as they are fighting to the death. They were likely buried while they were in the midst of a scuffle, and that forever preserved them until we eventually found it, and showed us that Velociraptor and Protoceratops likely had a predator-prey relationship. So this right here, again, that was something that likely happened. Though right here, it seems like the Velociraptor is just huge. Velociraptor was, of course, smaller than Protoceratops. Protoceratops was around sheep size, whereas Velociraptor was, about turkey size. So this is a big Velociraptor. Either that or it's a young Protoceratops, which is definitely not out of the cards. It looks pretty good. Like from what I can tell, it looks pretty decent. For a basis, this is what Protoceratops looked like. Like this is a pretty decent representation of the animal with a very interesting looking head. Of course, with that frill, a little bit of like a underdeveloped nasal horn and some kind of like pronounced eyebrow ridges right here. Feet, of course, they had feet, a beak, and notably a tail that looks a lot more like this. Protoceratops can join the club of dinosaurs with unique looking tails. It stands among there with the greats like Spinosaurus. Protoceratops, its tail is a little bit more like a tadpole tail rather than like a typical ceratopsian tail that was, a lot more rounded and kind of rigid. So Protoceratops was certainly a lot more strange in that department. So that is something that we will be looking out for when we're looking at these guys. But isn't this figure cool though? But so far, I think that's a pretty decent start to the list. But from that point on, we'll go ahead and move on to Chased by Dinosaurs. Of course, a Nigel Marven classic. We get to see a lot of Protoceratops with a lot of eggs, with a lot of their nests. A lot of Protoceratops eggs and nests have been found, which seems to indicate that Protoceratops was pretty widespread. It was a pretty common dinosaur, which I think was mentioned in the documentary that Protoceratops was pretty common overall. Interesting little fact too, Protoceratops actually had soft-shelled eggs, like similar to some snakes that we see today, rather than being the hard-shelled eggs that we often see with a lot of different reptiles. Design-wise, this guy looks like it's a lot more similar to a typical ceratopsian build, like a larger ceratopsian with that relatively kind of stubby tail that isn't tadpole-like, and the body proportions being a lot more similar to that, and a head that looks like it fits on the animal's body. Relatively speaking, compared to the rest of its body, Protoceratops had a pretty big head. It looked like a bobblehead on the animal. Like, again, you're going to see this model come up a lot because it represents Protoceratops very well. But yeah, you can really kind of see the head right here it's pretty deep, like it's decently large on the rest of the animal's body. In Chased by Dinosaurs, it's a lot more like it, it looks like its head actually fits on it. Again, as well as the tail being not, like a Protoceratops tail. The head doesn't look bad though. It certainly looks a lot like a Protoceratops head. And of course, we get to see a Protoceratops get hunted by velociraptors, which again is canon, even though the naked velociraptor part is not canon. But yeah, no, they were certainly on the menu for velociraptor. But at least the velociraptor is bipedal, which is very similar to birds. Because if you didn't know, all birds are bipedal. Moving on, we have Dinosaur Planet, and it looks like everything's looking a lot better. I really like the head on this animal. It looks like a proper Protoceratops head. The beak looks great. The jugal portion looks fantastic. The frill looks really great. It seems with Protoceratops, it's when it was first born. I think I mentioned this earlier, but when it was first hatched, it started off with a relatively small frill, but as it grew, the frill kind of grew out more and more laterally, which is to the side, to the point where you get a frill that is a lot more similar to this, that looks just wide like that. My wife got me this Protoceratops for Christmas, and that is just absolutely perfect timing because I am just getting a lot of use out of it. You can also see the feet pretty well of Protoceratops here. I wanted to mention the feet because ceratopsians have weird feet. Of course, they look like this. They have 5 fingers, or 5 digits rather, on the forelimbs, as well as 4 digits on the hind limbs. And just all around, they look very strange. The feet look pretty good here. The colors also look fantastic. I like the hints of different coloration on its frill. The frill was likely mostly used for display or just to identify members of the same species. And the tail looks much more like a proper Protoceratops tail. So far, this is like one of the best ones we've seen. After that, we have the truth about killer dinosaurs. Again, this one looks great. It looks a lot like a Protoceratops. The head looks great, the feet look great, and the whole body looks great. I also really like the hints of red in its frill, and we see it fight a velociraptor. And I'm also kind of noticing that whenever we're talking about Protoceratops in a documentary, velociraptor almost always shows up. It's kind of like Triceratops showing up with T-Rex. They're kind of like they go together. They're like peas and carrots, or peanut butter and jelly, or something else I can't think of. Can you think of something? Be sure to let me know. But this is yet another good one. And then we have dinosaurs alive. So everything looks really good. I also like how you can see the teeth towards the front of the animal's mouth, which is something that was true for Protoceratops. But the feet are weird, like weirder than a typical ceratopsian foot. It has like these really long, just fingers, just existing on the animal's foot, and they just look strange. I don't know what's going on with that. It looks very strange. Other than that, though, the rest of the animal looks good. It also has huge eyes, which is likely true for Protoceratops. It has, Protoceratops has massive orbits, which are the eye sockets, essentially. And if you have large orbits, that usually means that you needed extra space for large eyes. So it seems likely that Protoceratops did have larger eyes. Tarbosaurus, the mightiest ever. These ones look weird. They have like really long tails, and that's like the biggest thing that's what my eye goes to first, is just how long those tails look. Everything else looks great though. It's got this really cool green coloration. The head looks great. The limbs don't look bad, and that the feet look pretty good. It's just that tail that is the biggest standout for me. I don't know what else to say about that. It's just weird tail, man, but not bad all around. In dinosaur terrain, we get a stylized one that has more of a pink coloration with some blue stripes. Looks really cool. It looks really cool. It looks properly like a Protoceratops. It's got the beak. It's got a little bit more of a pronunciation, like a little bit of a ridge on her snout. The frill looks pretty good. It's a little bit smaller, which again, that would have been something that was subject to individualization. Like depending on which individual you were looking at, the frill would have been different. Everything looks great though. This does look a lot like a Protoceratops, so very good job on that one. In Dinosaur Revolution, this one looks really good. I especially love the texturing on the model, and just the whole model itself looks fantastic. That tail looks really good. The whole body looks really good. The feet look great. The head looks great. It's got that nasal structure, those jugals, the bigger eyes, the beak, the frill. All looks really good. Also, the younger individuals look great too. They look distinct from the adults, which is obviously something that often happens in nature. And they certainly have those stubbier proportions that Protoceratops babies would have had. So I really do like this one. Amazing Dino World is beautiful. I love this one. The blues with some greens, that's beautiful. I love that. Everything looks spot on too. Proportions are all there. It's got the proper structures on its head. It's got the frill, it's got the larger eyes, and we see it crawling out of a burrow. I don't know if we have confirmation on this per se, but a lot of Protoceratops fossils have been found kind of vertical, kind of like vertical as they were buried, which implies that they might have died in a burrow. So maybe implies that they were burrowing animals, at least to some extent. Again, I don't know if we have confirmation on that, so take that with every single grain of salt that you have. Um, but they do showcase it being a burrowing animal in here, which is certainly different than pretty much all of the other depictions that we've seen, I believe. Very cool though. Absolutely love it. I do think that I think it appears at the wrong time though. I'm not too sure if sorry, I'm not too sure if Protoceratops existed at the same time as Dinochirus, and I'm pretty sure it didn't. In fact, Google is at my disposal. We're going to figure this out. Yeah, I think that Protoceratops just barely went extinct, like right before Dinochirus shows up in the fossil record. So, yeah, I think that this is a time traveling Protoceratops, which is unfortunate. Anyway, but it still looks beautiful. I do really like it. I should probably give you those dates. It seems that Protoceratops existed from 75 to 71 million years ago, and Dinochirus shows up in the fossil record about 70 million years ago. So there might have been a 1 million year gap in between Protoceratops and Dinochirus, even though they did live in the same area. I think they lived in different formations entirely. So they just missed each other. And from that, we'll move on to the video games. First, we have Fossil Fighters. We have Proto here. Looks good. Little stylized. It's just a little stylized Protoceratops with some really cool colors. Frills present. You know, it lacks horns. But yeah, this one's good. I think it represents the animal pretty well. In its stylized way, of course. Moving on to Jurassic franchise video games, we have Jurassic Park 3 Park Builder. We get this one right here that all around looks really cool, has some fantastic colors. Not really much else I can add to it. Jurassic World Alive. Now, of course, I mentioned in the video where I talk about my favorite Jurassic World Alive creatures, that this is seriously just one of my favorite creatures in the whole game. Like, they nailed it with this one. Looks like a Protoceratops. You know, it's got the proper feet. The head looks really good. It's got the proper tail. The rest of the body is all proper. Everything about it is proper. I don't really have much else to say about it. I think that they really nailed it with this one. So absolutely, hats off to them. And definitely would love to see more like this. Okay, so now we have it in prior extinction. And initial impressions, looks really good. The head looks good. Body looks good. The tail looks good. It has the little bristles that are often placed on two smaller ceratopsians. It just stopped raining. I was waiting for it to stop raining specifically so I can record. But the animations look really good. Yeah, no, definitely no complaints. I was actually able to play this one because this is one of the smaller free ones. So, huge fan of it. Everything looks great. Oh no, Carnotaurus, I might die. Now we have it in the Isle. I'm not too sure if this is a creature that is planned to be added. Hope so, because I would love to play as Protoceratops. The design looks great. Very cool colors, at least the colors that are shown. I know that you will be able to change the colors in game. But the skull looks beautiful. It's got all of the right proportions. The hands look great. The feet look great. Tail looks great. Everything looks great. Not much else I can say other than the fact that it looks great. And now, of course, we move on to Prehistoric Kingdom, where we just have this gorgeous looking fella. Really like the way that the texturing of the skin looks. It has a little bit of some quills that go all the way down the back, which is really interesting. The whole shape looks really great. I really like the pronounced like eyebrows, essentially. Looks fantastic. Of course, this fella right here is Andrewsi. This is also Andrewsi. The tail looks good too. I don't think I mentioned that. All looks beautiful. And, oh, they're all Andrewsi. Oh, we don't have the other species. I didn't know that. So, yeah, they all look great. Let's just see them out in the wild. There you are, my precious. Go ahead and walk around and be cool. Sounds are really good. And just, yeah, these are really good animations. This is a good place to really get a good feel of, like, their feet. Very interesting looking, like, back feet with 4 digits. And then the 5 digits right here. This is a pretty classic ceratopsian foot. You have like the 3 digits that are out in the front that look like they do something. And then the 2 digits back here that basically just are there. They're just kind of like hanging off the back. I don't know how to speak. But that is very nicely represented here and, you know, represented in most of the depictions that we've seen. Also with this kind of like little underdeveloped horn here, with the little eyebrows. All looks really good. Let's see what Nigel has to say.
Protoceratops. This animal is one of the smaller species of ceratopsians, living alongside deadly neighbours, like the Velociraptor. Thankfully, this little critter is surprisingly speedy. Compared to its larger cousins, the foot structure and limb proportions of Protoceratops are much better adapted to running. I guess that's important if you're trying to avoid speedy thieves like Velociraptor.
Aye, 'tis true, because as you know, it is canon that Velociraptor and Protoceratops would at least from time to time confront each other. Look how cool this one looks. You get some really cool yellow colorations. I love when I think this is pretty common for reptiles, but I love how the colors are separated by the scales, right? So it's like you got these white colors right here, but they're all like just individual scales that are just a white coloration that happen to be grouped up. Same with the yellow ones up here. Again, I think that's exactly how it is with reptiles today. But yeah, I love it. It looks really good. This frill in general just looks really good, and I love when they give it different colors like that. Really kind of emphasizes the fact that it was likely uh, mostly used as display, which I think I mentioned, and that was a weird thing that you did to your neck right there. Don't recommend doing that. Don't do that. Don't do that. And look at that. They have horizontal pupils right here, which is something you usually see with grazing animals today, like goats and things like that. So that's interesting. But yeah, another fantastic design right there. And finally, Paleo Pines. I do really love Paleo Pines. I think even though I haven't gotten to play it, I will play it one of these days. But I do love the creature designs. I think that they're really stylized in a very cool way. This Protoceratops is no exception. It also has like some bristles on its tail. The tail looks like the proper shape, and I love how it's kind of lifted up like that, how most depictions are shown. Frill looks really good, and the beak looks really good. Only thing that throws me off is how low its eye is. Compared to where the orbit is on Protoceratops's, its actual eye, it's like a lot closer to the base of the actual frill rather than being towards the bottom, closer to the beak. That's the only thing that throws me off about it. That's like my one critique on it. But all around, I think it looks really good. And there we have it. That was Protoceratops. This was likely not every single depiction. In fact, I know that there were some that I had to leave out for various different reasons. But all those were cool. Those were cool depictions that we had right there. A lot of them remained pretty consistent for the most part, and I feel like we capture Protoceratops pretty well. Many of them did my boy justice here. It looks really cool. Looks really cool. Isn't that a cool figure? Don't you just love that? I love Beasts of the Mesozoic. Such a cool figure line. But yeah, that was the many interpretations of Protoceratops. I do hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to keep your eyes out for tomorrow's poll, where you'll be able to vote for the next creature. And yeah, until then, if you enjoyed this video and you like dinosaur content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That really does help out a lot. And if you want to help support the channel, please consider checking out my Patreon. And thank you so much to all of my current patrons. You guys have really been helping out so much. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. But until next time, thank you guys so much for watching, and have an awesome day.